Hello, everyone. I'm back and excited to talk to you about something that I talked about in yesterday's live that I really wanted to think about a little bit more. And I have thought about it since I got off my live yesterday. And what it was that today Mars in Virgo is opposing Neptune and Pisces. And I talked a little bit about that yesterday. And it's an interesting thing because it's involving Neptune. And Neptune is the part of our consciousness that is, first of all, it has to do with our relationship to the collective, our relationship to the divine, our relationship to our own spiritual beliefs, our relationship to the mystic and the mystical and glamour. And it really kind of encompasses everything. It's like the ocean, right? There's just so many life forms within the ocean, and it's Neptune and Pisces is like the ocean of consciousness, right? So it's the collective. And so it's collective consciousness and the collective unconscious. So I was really thinking about this Mars opposing Neptune today and what that could be like for us. Now, it is going to be individual how you experience it, because it's really, all of these transits are always going to be experienced in somewhat of a unique way for us, for our own evolution. So we're going to draw experiences to us, and that's just naturally going to be really assisting us to grow. The potential's there to grow, right? But with Mars opposing Neptune, there is likely going to be, we're all experiencing something collectively, right? So Neptune and Pisces, we've all been experiencing this collectively. And it is, like I said, the collective unconscious, it's the collective consciousness. So when we have Mars in Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces, as I said yesterday, this is really, I believe, when it comes down to the bottom line of it, it's really important, because it's Mars in Virgo, to be in alignment with listening to your own inner guidance. But when you have Mars opposing Neptune, an opposition is often coming from the outside world. So it's in our relationships, or it's in, as in this case, it could be from the collective. It could be still, coming through individuals in our lives, but it's typically going to be, really like our own inner guidance in an opposition with this collective unconscious, the collective consciousness, and this group as collective energy. And so this can really have a lot to do with beliefs too, though, because it's, even though Neptune's the modern day ruler of Pisces, Neptune is what we're talking about. So it's coming into contact exact with Neptune. But it's also, Pisces is ruled, its ancient ruler or guide is Jupiter. So they kind of work together, and Jupiter is very much about our beliefs, right? Our belief systems, what supports us to grow and learn. And this can be individually as well as collectively, right? So what we can be coming face to face with in this time, particularly, it's the exact opposition today, is this, really coming into this Mars energy around, our own personal devotions, our own personal understandings, our own personal connection to the divine, and then how that's very different than what's going on in the collective and the beliefs that are happening there. And it's not just beliefs, it's also all of these Neptunian qualities, which can be, it can be spiritual beliefs, it can be connection to the divine, right? It can be about glamour, as I said, but it can also be about illusions and delusions and confusions and deceptions. And with Neptune moving through Pisces, this is meant to dissolve the illusions, dissolve the deceptions, dissolve the confusions. But it's confusing because it's dissolving things that we may have believed before, that we may have based our understanding before. And Neptune is meant to really dissolve what is not current anymore. And it also kind of dissolves what's on the surface so you can get to the core. Spiritual beliefs, understandings, what you see as divine, what you see as resonant with you, and your contribution to the collective. So with Mars opposition Neptune, this can really be anger in the collective because it's Mars, and it can be people, really getting angry at something that's different than them, right? And it can be projections. Whenever you have oppositions, this can really heighten the potential for projecting one's reality onto another. And the thing about Neptune and Pisces is that it's boundaryless. It contains everything. So there are no boundaries. And the issue with that is that then it's very confusing when there's no parameters, there's no boundaries to live by. There's no, it can be unsafe in some ways, right? So we have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, we have Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and the thing is that they're within sextile to each other. And the thing about Pluto retrograde is what am I responsible for? And ultimately, it really is. We're responsible for ourselves. We are, it is important for us to be interdependent, but the work of Capricorn is really getting to understand and getting to set parameters that where do parameters need to be placed so that there are boundaries, that there are boundaries that actually help me to function, help you to function. And the thing is boundaries are, we all have different types of boundaries, and meaning we might see boundaries in different ways. And so we have to figure out what works for us boundary-wise, what works for our lives, what kind of structure is good for us, how we relate to others. There has to be some parameters and boundaries when we relate to others so that it's healthy and safe, right? And so ultimately, Pluto in Capricorn is really about up-leveling our empowerment by being completely self-responsible and self-reliant. Because Uranus is in Taurus as well, this is all about up-leveling our capacity to be self-reliant. When we are self-reliant, we are not depending on others to create anything for us. We are actually creating for ourselves, and then we are sharing what we have to share. And it's not coming from a place of neediness. And the thing about Pluto and Capricorn is that it squares Libra and Aries. So this is about getting really clear about codependencies and about, getting real clear about what is mine, what is my responsibility, what is another person's responsibility, to create the parameters in our own lives. And we really want to empower each other to be self-reliant as much as possible. It doesn't mean we can't help each other or assist each other, but it does mean that we are really creating the parameters that work for us personally and honoring that in other people, that other people have the right to set the parameters for their lives that they feel works for them, that they feel is safe for them, and honoring that. And if it doesn't mesh, then we can, we can choose not to interact, right? The thing about with this Pluto and Capricorn and how it's actually offering us the opportunity to get clear about that. That way we're in the right time, in the right place with the right people. And it doesn't mean another person is bad because their boundaries are not the same as yours, but it just means it doesn't work. They're on a different type of path. And that path is, they have their own evolutionary path in regards to their connection to the divine. And I really believe that we all have our own process, and it's going to be very different for each person. And it doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. It's just that we have a unique relationship to the collective. We have a unique relationship to the divine, and we do our obligation is to honor our connection and our own belief system and allow others to honor their belief system, because that is their relationship to the divine, and it's really not ours to impose our beliefs onto someone, right? Because we're all naturally, just like life naturally and organically flows, we all have this natural flow in our path of evolution that's best for us, but also that means it's best for the collective, even though we may not understand other people's paths, right? So with Mars opposing Neptune, this can really be bringing this stuff up into consciousness through other people, through things we're witnessing. It could, be even being on the internet and seeing things that in the collective where there's a lot of confusions around boundaries. What is really appropriate to communicate or not communicate? What is really appropriate in really allowing another to have the freedom to have their own values, their own set of parameters, their own boundaries, their own ideas of what safety means to them. And it's going to be different for everyone. And, realistically, I think that Neptune and Pisces could be really helping us to recognize that that is part of spirituality, is to allowing for God's creation to naturally unfold, or the ultimate creator's creation to naturally unfold, however you name that energy. And so Mars opposition Neptune can be bringing those confrontations. And even if it's, something that's not necessarily being acted out with another, it could be something that we're feeling internally with Mars and Virgo. And as I said yesterday, I think a great way to work with this energy is to really remember to trust your own inner guidance. And as I said yesterday, we can get really inundated with information and distractions and busyness and, ideas and everything. We're really kind of bombarded, and it's a good time to recognize that ultimately too, we all have our own path and our own devotion to the divine and what we feel is right for us on a spiritual level, and the actions we take on the earth plane to be in alignment with our own belief systems and real connection to life itself and to the divine. And so this can really be up. Now, Mercury has moved on into Libra, and I wanted to talk about that because Mercury in Libras is helpful because this is where this can be communication with others, because Libra is always about the self and other. You put Mercury there and there's going to be, this communication going on. And so this is where it's also kind of an interesting piece to keep in mind, because a lot of people on this planet have Neptune in Libra or Pluto in Libra. So if you have Neptune in Libra in your natal chart, this can be, confusions around relationships. It can be idealizing other people, idealizing certain types of relationships. It can be delusions and illusions and confusions in relationships. Pluto in Libra can really have a challenge around empowerment when relating to another. And so it can be manipulations in relationship. It can be power over, or it can be giving power away in relationships and relating. It can be codependencies in order to get along and in order to be accepted. And so when we have Pluto squaring that sign, this has been bringing this up ever since 2008. And we've been working on it. We're still working on it because Pluto's still in Capricorn. So there's still more lessons around, what are my boundaries? What are my parameters? Am I idealizing another person? Are they idealizing me? Is someone else manipulating the relationship, or taking in the relationship and not giving back? Or is there some kind of codependency or neediness? And am I in the wrong relationship because I'm coming from a place of needing to be needed, or needing to be relating in some way, or seen in some way? And so I feel there's a potential for great evolutionary growth if we are working with these energies. And it's not easy because they're not easy energies. We have to be so diligent and really taking a moment to think about what's happening in our interactions and with ourselves, in our own feelings, and what's happening, as we relate to each other, and making sure that we're not being completely present and realizing, well, wait, why did I just say that? Or why am I putting someone else down, for example? Or why am I, what am I afraid of? Because I think that often when people are afraid, they are belittling other people, or belittling their beliefs, or these are just examples. This is not meaning that this is happening for everyone, but these are examples of these how these energies can play out. And with Mars opposite Neptune, I just think that we could get triggered. And that, just realize that the trigger can help us to actually go, oh, I need to take a step back and kind of assess what's going on for me right now. Is this triggering me because there's something I'm afraid of? And that's really, if that's true, that's something I need to work through. It's not for me to project that fear onto others. And we really want to be managing our fear right now, because we all know there's things up that could bring people into their primal brain. And the primal brain is is instinctually going to protect oneself based on one's own unconscious drives. So if somebody feels that their life is at stake, they will harm other people just with instinct, not necessarily because they're bad people, but because their primal brain is active, and they're concerned, they're they're instinctually acting on behalf of unconscious drives because there's something in them that feels that that's where they're at, right? But as they say, you know how they say there's this that like your brain doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger running after you than ooh, that might have been a hawk or something. Wow. It doesn't know the difference between a tiger running after you, right? Than even witnessing something on a movie. You know, I mean, our body starts to respond. Like if somebody's like getting attacked, we start going like this, right? Or our body, because the brain's like, oh my God, this traumatic experience is happening, but it's happening on a movie, you know, and we're like, you know, like close my eyes, you know. So just remembering that our brain it actually sends out those endorphins, which is why people can get addicted to scary movies, because it sends out these chemicals. I don't know if endorphins is right. What is that called? There's these chemicals get released in the body, right? And we can become addicted to the chemicals. So I would say too, even right now, like being aware that if we're getting on Facebook or getting on any kind of social media, or, you know, the information we're exposing ourselves to can really, our bodies can start to get addicted to that energy and the chemicals it releases too, even if we don't like it, but we can like get acclimated to that. And so I think, you know, I'm just really trying to share that we do want to be taking the time to take care of ourselves. I really believe that Virgo is very much about self-care, self-improvement, and, you know, Mars is in Virgo. So this can be a time to really take care of yourself and really take care of what you need, you know, take care of your body and what you're consuming. Because Virgo is related to the intestines, and there's this spiritual dimension to the intestines, because the intestines, all it does is it actually takes information through food and sorts out what is nutritious for this body, what does my body need, what it would become toxic if I held on to it, and it, you know, eliminates what it doesn't need or what would be toxic. So we do that on consciousness level as well, on energetic level as well. And so Virgo is very much about that as well. Like, what energy is good for me? What energy is not good for me? And this is why I say Mars and Virgo, opposing Neptune and Pisces, take care of yourself, you know, do some self-care. It's a great way if you're feeling triggered or you're finding that there's this oppositional energy going on between you and others, or you and another, or you and the collective, and what's going on right now. It's just a time to take it one step at a time. Virgo is very much about moment to moment, day to day, one step at a time, so that, you know, this is how you manage anxiety and stress. Virgo can very much be this part of our consciousness that experiences anxiety and stress because it sees the details. So anyone with a lot of Virgo knows, oh, okay, I just need to take it a step at a time. I can't worry about this thing because that's not going to help. Worry is just feeding the consciousness you don't want, attracting what you don't want, right? So just taking care of yourself one step at a time, moment to moment, being completely present, because when you're completely present, you have all of your power. If you're going into the past or going into the future too much, you're not accessing your power, because your power is right now. Taking care of what you can right now, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind. And so I just really wanted to share that, because I know that this is not an easy time. Mars opposition Neptune isn't necessarily easy. Mercury in Libra can be having communication with others that isn't easy. And it can be kind of trying to work out your own needs in relationships. And so I really wanted to clarify that, because yesterday I was I'll say in my own chart, this Mars opposition Neptune, Mars is actually conjunct my moon, my natal moon, and Neptune is in opposition. It's not exact, but it's still really close. And so I was really feeling that Neptunian energy yesterday. So I did talk about it, and sorry, I did talk about it, but I was a little bit Neptunian. So it's like, I gotta come back and talk about this, because I need to actually think about it more and get clear, and really, because it's a deep, Neptune's deep. So I wanted to see this. So joy, yes. Glamour, interesting, yes. So a lot of people that are actors and actresses and are in the glamour world have a lot of Pisces in their chart, or prominent Pisces in their chart, or Neptune in their chart, because Neptune is like glamour. It's also kind of when you have Neptune involved, like, people can project their fantasies on you, like Neptune, if you have Neptune conjunct the sun, or Neptune in aspect to the sun, or Neptune on the ascendant, or prominent Neptune is typically, people project their fantasy on you. And that fantasy can be like their fantasy, like whatever their fantasy is, but fantasy can also be negative, like their nightmare, so be aware. But also, I was going to say something else. And that comes in with this Mars-Neptune opposition. It's just that it's an opposition. So there can be projection going on. People can be projecting onto others. This Mars opposition Neptune. And so they can be projecting their personal fantasy, their personal nightmare. This is really important right now. And with Mars opposite Neptune. Just remember that we can be projecting our own stuff onto other people or onto a situation. So just remember that we're all having our own reality. We're all having our own experience. And it comes from, our own past experiences and how we've gotten where we are now. So just being present with that and realizing that that's a possibility. And we want to minimize that projection, and just that when it happens, when we're finding ourselves triggered by others, or others are triggered by us, we can just take a step back, take a moment, do that Virgo thing, take a moment and take care of ourselves. And, we can let things sit and just allow people to be where they're at, so that then they can work it out for themselves. And then we can come back together and hopefully be a collective that is actually honoring of each other. So I wanted to read all these. What about the concept of serving boundaries with aspects of our own selves, i.e. shadow side? Curious if you have thoughts on this. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, is we all have a shadow. We're all working with our own shadow material. So sometimes we do have to have boundaries with ourselves. Absolutely. We have to implement boundaries because we may have not had appropriate boundaries in the past. This is an important question, because also Neptune is addiction. Neptune can be addiction. And so we can get addicted to the ways in which we've believed before, the ways in which we created our realities before, our spiritual beliefs. It could be just addictive behavior. It doesn't even have to be like intoxicant, but it can be like, meaning like we're addicted to the fantasy. You know, we're addicted to feeling good. We're addicted to codependency. We're addicted to even thinking things that aren't good for us or that aren't serving us. So we all do this, you know, I think, like, meaning that we all have to implement boundaries with ourselves over time, because we likely are improving. We want to be improving through our life, which is very much a Virgo thing. The Virgo archetype wants to self-improve. And so this means we'll have to, like, let go of behaviors that aren't in alignment with that next step in our spiritual journey. And I think we all have this ideal that we're striving to become, and it's connected to the way that we see the divine. But there are steps that we have to make to be there and to get there. And so this is the self-improvement that we can all be striving for, which includes shadow work at all times. Because we all have lots of, I believe, we have shadow work because there's just things we don't know. There's still things yet to discover, which is a shadow, right? Including about ourselves and our own unconscious motivations. So we do have to implement boundaries with ourselves. I hope that answers the question. And I don't know if you're still on, Joy, so maybe you'll come back. I'm just not sure. You're spot on. Fear equals crossing boundaries, our own or others. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the thing is, when we're in fear, our primal brain steps in, and we can actually do things that we would have never done in any other circumstance. Things that don't align with our values. And sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's not. And I'm going to explain that because I know it probably sounds really bad to say sometimes it's a good thing. But it's like if you're in, a dark alley as a woman and some guy and your body is like, this, there's something wrong, but the guy is actually saying something to you that is different, meaning he's saying he wants to give you a ride, he wants to help you out, you shouldn't be in this dark alley, but your body is like, no, there's something not right here. If he were to ask you, well, are you alone? Do you have a ride coming? Or, can I give you a ride? I mean, you're going to say, my ride's already on his way. He's on his way. He should be here like any second. That is where you would instinctually protect yourself, the primal brain, right? Which is a lie, which isn't aligned with your values, right? I know it's kind of a silly example, but it's what came to mind. And one of my friends was just telling me about a situation that was kind of like that. It was really, really intense. That had to do with a taxi driver, and she got in a taxi, a taxi, and she had to get herself out of the situation. He seemed really, really nice, and then he really wasn't. So, anyways, but yeah, when we get into fear, our values can get really skewed because we're not thinking clearly, and we're stressed. And so, you know what they say, like on a plane, they say, when they're telling you about the oxygen mask, and they always say, before you help another, put your oxygen mask on first. This is so important because I think it's very symbolic. We have to be responsible for what we feel is right for ourselves first. How that's going to show up for each person is going to be different. And we have to honor that we all have to speak on behalf of our own. And when I say speak, I'm kind of saying it as a metaphor. We have to actually act on behalf of ourselves first so that we're tuning into our own wisdom, our own intelligence, and our own self-responsibility. We do not want to actually make decisions based on somebody else's idea of what's right, because if it's not right and we go against our own knowing, we will have so much regret because we were out of our integrity. We were lacking in integrity. We were lacking in aligning with our own wisdom and our own connection to source energy. And so we have to trust our own navigating system. We cannot trust other people's navigating system. It doesn't mean they're not trustworthy people. It means that we all have our own self-navigating system. We have to honor that because it's going to take us in the right place at the right time for our own right spiritual path. And that may be not, it may be with and in a different direction than someone else, but it was right both ways. When we are completely self-responsible, we will not have regrets because we know that whatever, if we make a mistake, if we are learning, we don't make mistakes in a way, because it's like we experience life and we learn, and we have to earn that wisdom. So we can't be making decisions based on what other people think is right for us, because first of all, that's codependency. Second of all, it's denying your own connection to source, and it actually lacks self-responsibility, because then we can just blame them when something goes wrong. Well, I'll just blame them because they made the decision for me, so now I'm going to blame them. So it's not my fault. We can't do that. We have to actually be completely integral and completely self-responsible. And that's not easy because, yeah, I mean, Virgo, like for example, that's the part of our consciousness that can doubt ourselves. We all experience doubt because we're all learning. We all don't know it all. So we have to manage that doubt and go, all I can do is what I feel is right for me. That's the best I can do. That's the best learning path, because then nobody else is responsible for my mistakes. You know what I mean? So this is the way to 100% integrity, in my opinion, and also 100% plugged into source, your connection to source, right? So I hope this is helpful in regards to these transits. This is what, came to me, and, really thinking about this Mars opposition Neptune. So I think that's it for today. And as you know, I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much to everyone that's hopped on. It always is so much fun knowing that there's somebody there, commenting, listening. If you have any thoughts or comments, as you know, I would love to hear them. And I so appreciate people that when you can hop on, that you hop on. And, if you feel inspired to, and then also people watching the replay, thank you so much. And Mika, I'm so glad you're here. Spot on. Thank you for helping, teaching, and sharing. Thank you so much. I am so thankful and honored for people that, hop on and have a listen, because I've been studying this for so long, and it is such an honor to share all this that I've been studying for a really long time now, and to have this platform to share it as well has been such a blessing. So thank you so much, and thank you for receiving me and receiving everything that I've been learning, and I'm glad that it's helpful to people, because it's really helpful to me, especially in this time frame. But it really has been helpful ever since I've been learning astrology and learning about regression training or regression therapy work as well. So thanks for hopping on, and I'll be back tomorrow.